Well, it's time to actually talk about the Final Fantasy VII remake. At least the first part, which I got on PS4 when it was on sale several years ago. However, I didn't really play this game until the integrated version hit the PC, which is what most of this video will be discussing. Now, I will admit, when this first came out, I was initially unenthused about it, and can you blame me? It's going to be broken into 3 parts, taking a better part of a decade in order to have all 3 parts released. And the first part here is just the Midgar section. That's kind of like saying, we're doing an epic Kingdom Hearts 2 remake, and the first part is going to be nothing but Twilight Town, expanded to 30 hours. That said, after playing it several times, I have to admit this game is a lot of fun, and definitely an upgrade to the original, and I can't wait for the second part to hit PC because no way in heck am I picking up a PS5. The story has undergone significant updates with a mix of positives and negatives, but overall, there's more good than bad here. The plot remains largely the same. You play as Cloud Strife, a mercenary for the anti-Shinra group Avalanche, and start off by blowing up a reactor. However, there are notable changes even in this early stage. For example, the bomb Cloud plants is only meant to destroy a specific machine within the reactor, but Shinra escalates things by nuking the entire facility after Cloud's group leaves. This is kind of expected considering how the original Final Fantasy VII was released several years before September 11th. From there, Cloud tries to get along with Avalanche, meets Aerith, and then has to save her from Shinra. The game adds a lot of extra scenes to expand the characters in the city, which now feels like a character in its own right, which is a great thing. One significant expansion involves a part where you visit the upper part of Sector 7, with Jessie to see her family and steal more materials for another bomb. During this section, you learn more about Jessie, Bix, and Wedge's backstory. Another added scene has you completing side missions with Tifa in Sector 7. You'll also complete side missions in Sector 5. This really makes the town and the characters feel like they're real. For example, in the original, Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie were just side characters meant to die in the first 2 hours. Here, they're given real depth and you really care about them. Wedge is shown to have a big appetite and a big heart. Biggs is fighting to help the slums, and Jessie is trying to save her father. Tifa's feelings for Cloud are more apparent, and the voice acting makes her come off as a sweetheart. On the other hand, Aerith's scenes emphasize that she's basically the saint of Sector 5. In the original game, she was a nice person, yes, but you didn't get much character development, at least this early on. In the remake, her interactions with the people of Sector 5 and how they always turn to her for help make it heartbreaking to think about what would happen if anything bad happened to her. Shinra's characters are also expanded upon, especially in the integrate Yuffie section that unlocks after the main game. We see more of Scarlet, and like in the original game, they're truly terrifying and unlikable, except for Reeve, who's still portrayed as the only person working in Shinra who has a conscience. Cloud's personality is another area of expansion. Many people compare him to Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, but Cloud's emo-ness is a bit more understandable. He's a soldier who's gone through some traumatic experience, and his memories of multiple people in his head, which causes him confusion. Plus, he tries to act tough because he's an ex-soldier mercenary. Despite this, he still has a heart. For example, when Wedge injures himself protecting the group, Cloud actually shows some kindness to him when they parachute on the way down. So he's not all emo or just a jerk. He has actual character. Midgar itself feels like a character now. In the original, Midgar could be summed up in one word: brown. Everything was brown and dirty. While the slums are still dirty in the remake, they now have color. You see that these slums have life. There's even some light, though it may not be as bright because of the plate above them, but there's still sunlight here. These slums are actual towns and not just dirt hills, and the communities feel real. This really opens up the lore and lets us see what life in Midgar is actually like, which is a huge improvement over the original. So, what didn't I like about this game? Well, it's not written as a soft reboot with a few Easter eggs that only fans of the original would understand. No, the game expects you to have played the original, as it's a bit of a pseudo-sequel with hints that either Aerith or Sephiroth are trying to screw with the timeline. Right from the get-go, when we first meet Sephiroth, he immediately says, "Cloud, you can't protect anyone." If you played the original, you know who this is and what he means by that. If you're new, you're just left wondering, who the hell is this and what does he mean by that? Then later on, we see Keiichi in just one scene. Again, if you played the original, you know who this is and what the talking cat is about and why he'd be worried about the plate. If not, you're left wondering why he's in just one scene and what the point of him being there is. When a giant meteor shows up while Sephiroth is talking, original players will understand the meaning, but newcomers will be confused. There's also a lot of Easter eggs and things that are shown to happen later in the game's story, past part 1, which means that the flow will be different in the next game. It would have been a better reboot if it was more streamlined so all players could follow the story while still catering to the fans. Oh, but it gets worse. Again, there's a subplot where either Sephiroth or Aerith or both are trying to mess with the timeline. So these entities called Whispers show up to protect it. Whenever something happens that deviates too much from the original game, like Hojo almost revealing the truth about Cloud's memory, or Barrett and the crew deciding to leave Cloud out of the second bombing mission, the Whispers show up to protect the timeline. However, at the end of the game, Cloud and the gang destroy them, meaning that the future is no longer set, and that means anything can happen. Be prepared for a lot of Nomura-style writing in the second game, which means a lot of plot twists, convoluted details, and very complicated storytelling. Considering what I've heard about the ending of Part 2, I'm not far off when I wrote this a year ago. The gameplay is actually really fun, and I was pleasantly surprised by how good it is. Combat works like this. Each of the 4 characters you control throughout the game has a different style. Cloud is a balanced but heavy hitter with his sword. Tifa is a swift combo maker who doesn't really hit hard, but she strikes super fast. Barrett is a quick attacker from a distance with his machine gun, and Aerith is another distant fighter who uses a magic wand. Speed matters because the more your character attacks, the faster their ATB gauge fills, which means you can use items, special moves, and spells quicker. The ATB of the character you control also fills faster, so there's a lot of strategy in deciding who moves, who attacks, and when. Again, each person also has their own abilities. Aerith is, of course, one of the more useful ones because her abilities still go towards defense support and healing. As far as dungeons and items go, they're pretty faithful to the original, but there's a few new twists and expansion. They did need to stretch this game to 20 to 30 hours long from what was originally a 3-hour intro, and for the most part, the newer areas are pretty good and fun. I love the expanded sequence of trying to get to the top of Midgar. In the original, it's just a 5-minute climbing scene. Here, it takes about an hour to do, but you see the rubble, you see people trying to climb out and get back to the slums. You see Midgar burning. It's not just a pre-rendered map, it gets a better sense of the destruction that took place earlier in the story. The only dungeon I found annoying was the one where you had to guide Aerith using mechanical hands to get to Sector 6. The worst part is, if you want to replay Sector 6 scenario after unlocking all the chapters, you still have to do this part again, and Chapter 6 is the most interesting one, as it's the one that deals with the wall market. Still, the dungeons are good and feel like they're from the original game, just the ideas are expanded on. The only other minor gripe are the expanded motorcycle chase at the end of the game. While it's a fun little minigame and palate cleanser in the original, here it wears out its welcome well before the end. Other than that, the game's pretty fun, and I enjoyed it more than I thought it would, and definitely recommend people give this a try. The graphics are top-notch. One of my complaints about the original was that Midgar appeared brown and lifeless. Why would anyone want to live in this shithole where everything looks awful? This remake brings Midgar to life, both above and below the plate. There's color and vibrancy. Granted, below the plate is still a slum and it's a hard place to live, but there's still light and life and color. This just changes the nature of the game, and it just makes the world so much better. And of course, the character designs are improved. There's voice acting and actual cutscenes in this one. It just makes it so much better as far as the story. The PC version has an okay frame rate, but it's not the best. It wasn't bad enough for it to take me out of the experience. And then, of course, the one thing I do have to harp on is that there's no ultra widescreen support. In the end, it's a good update, but there's a few things that could have been made better in this PC version, I feel. But again, I still enjoyed it and think it's worth getting. The new voice actors absolutely nail their parts. Cloud's new voice actor does it much better than Steve Burton is in capturing Cloud's character.
We could.
Yeah. You owe me a pizza.
All the new voice actors do a good job of capturing the characters, and for once I think it was a great idea to switch up the characters. Music remakes are great too, capturing the audio of the original. There's even side quests and tracking down hidden arrangements in this game too, so the audio knocks it out of the park.
My husband had been away for so long, and I was lonely.
In the end, I really enjoyed this game more than I thought I would. Most of my complaints are nitpicks. The gameplay is top-notch, the graphical overhaul really improves the story, and just gives Midgar this feeling of life. My only really big concern is, again, the story expects you to have played the original game, so you have to actually play the 25-year-old game before you get into this newer remake of it. And of course, it just opens up the story for Nomura to fool around with, and I am really concerned that this is what's going to happen in the future. Anyways, this is Tommy the Game Master. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Try this.
Headed this way!
No.
What the hell are the others doing?